Hi again everybody, this time I'll be discussing a subject that is very dear to me, namely the Battlefield franchise. It has in my opinion degenerated into something that is merely built for money grabbing and milking the cash cow. And not only that, numerous bugs and glitches plague the last two games, but especially Battlefield 4 itself. Now there's gonna be a new installment in the franchise at the end of this year called Battlefield Hardline. Now this means that there's only been 1 year between the release of Battlefield 4 and Battlefield Hardline. However, that doesn't mean it's gonna be bad because of that reason alone, because Hardline is developed by Visceral Games, known from their Dead Space franchise, which is another franchise that has been milked dry by EA. But this gives DICE the time and manpower needed to fix Battlefield 4 and finish the DLCs in time, while they are also working on Star Wars Battlefront. But the reasons of which I think that will make Battlefield Hardline suck are a little bit more complex and based on lessons learned from the past. So without stretching the intro too long, I'll begin with the 5 reasons why I think Battlefield Hardline will suck balls. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Well, never mind, let's get on with it. Reason number 1 is very simple and easy to explain. Ever since the release of the Battlefield 3 beta, we have seen numerous of bugs, crashes and glitches infesting our beloved franchise. And some of these bugs even made it unplayable at first instance, like game crashes, the master server that went down, or even Origin that just shut down and didn't come back online for half a day. Although I do have to mention that Origin was just newly released at the time of the Battlefield 3 release, so that gives them a slight excuse for that at least. All these crashes returned in the Battlefield 4 beta as well, and also stayed in the main game for the most part. Disconnects after 2 or 3 rounds playing were even more common to find than dumb Americans.
How many sides does a triangle have?
Damn, 4.
There's no sides. 1.
Although some performance bugs were way back from the time that Battlefield 2 got released. Like for example the latency and netcoding problems that made the hit registration for your bullets get even more lame than that of the A-Team. However, it didn't stay with all these performance bugs alone. No. There were also many gameplay bugs, like for example rockets not hitting properly on tanks, getting killed in the driver's seat, getting hit behind cover, which is slightly related to the netcoding, getting stuck behind invisible walls, getting one-shotted, the long neck glitches, not being able to reassign the spotting button to something else besides the A or Q button, or just broken hitboxes of objects and players. There's just way too many of them to mention, so I'll just quit mentioning them. Now what the most important part of all these bugs are is that they've either been around for over 5 games or since Battlefield 3, meaning that they were never fixed since then and are not being planned on dealing with. So people who slightly hoped that DICE or Visceral Games will fix these things before Hardline is released are living on false hope. Sorry to smash your hopes and dreams, but that's the cold, hard truth.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If they get fixed, then all the better for you. But I'm just saying that you shouldn't get your hopes and expectations up too high, and just wait until you see the reviews before buying this game. Okay, so recently EA and Visceral announced that they will be releasing a second beta later this summer or in the autumn. Now I don't know about you guys, but doesn't that look fishy to you? What I mean by that is that this very much looks like they're trying to rectify the bad reputation they created with the previous beta, and I got to say that they actually did give me that impression during the beta. That everything was still as fucked up as before, and that it would again take 6 months after the release of Hardline to fix this crap, just like Battlefield 3 and 4 had. Now don't get me wrong, normally it doesn't seem so bad that a company is trying to shape up the bad image of their game by giving a second tryout for everybody with a second beta. But in my opinion, a huge company like EA or Visceral Games should be able to get things right from the first try, especially since EA claims that Visceral Games has been busy at Battlefield Hardline for over 3 years now. Which just makes them look more like incompetent idiots at the moment, or that the Frostbite engine is just crap as hell. In that case, it already looks promising for Star Wars Battlefront, since it's based on the same damn engine. Okay, so we all know that for a longer time than today, EA is a money-grabbing machine and would even sell itself on the corner of the street to get some cash together, which is understandable since their reputation with their stock and shareholders has declined very rapidly the last few years, and to be honest, I wouldn't trust my investment money with EA either at the moment. So what they've got to do is to get as much cash as they can out of every game they release. Why do you think that the last Dungeon Keeper game on mobile iOS was so crap? Because of that same damn reason that EA is in bad papers and needs money badly. And it's not a rumor anymore either, it's a cold hard fact now. So what EA's brilliant plan was to ask a lot of money for their games in advance, so that they've earned enough money before anybody could realize that their game sucked after the release. How they did this with Battlefield is charge money up front for DLC packs with premium. DLC packs of which you do not even know the content yet. And even more funny is that there are still idiots around that are planning on buying premium for Battlefield Hardline as well. Please get some brains in that skull of yours and look at the past and learn from it. For fuck's sake, people. Now, other ways to rip off players is, for example, with battle packs now, charging real money for something that has completely random loot drops. Not to mention that the weapon accessories that are all weapon bound, meaning that scopes, grips or barrels, which are exactly the same by the way, aren't interchangeable between other weapons. So for all you know, you could be spending $100 or euros before you can even get a specific scope or grip for your current weapon. Now if that isn't lucrative money making, then I don't know what is anymore. So in the end, with both premium and battle packs, you're constantly paying for something of which you do not even know the content of. Okay, now I don't know if you guys have noticed this already, but it's pretty hard to miss actually. That EA just hypes the crap out of their games every time again. Okay, so they can warm up the people a little bit for their upcoming titles, because that's exactly what Activision and Ubisoft does as well. But somehow I find the way that EA does it a little bit worse. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's like you have this gut feeling that you're pulling your leg again, or just basically lying through their teeth again. Which is funny to say, often the case with EA. And they're often smart enough to just show you pieces of scripted events in the single player, or just quick random flashes of gameplay from the multiplayer that doesn't reveal too much, so that the faults and bugs are covered up perfectly. Just think for a second if you can remember how awesome that Battlefield 3 single player footage looked from the trailers. Like for example when they used a rocket launcher to blow up a sniper in a building, or an entire building coming down on a helicopter. So how can something that looks so awesome suck so much when you play it? Well, there's a simple explanation for that, because of careful editing, my friends. The footage they select for their teasers and trailers has been carefully chosen so that only the most awesome few seconds are shown. It's the oldest trick in the book for selling both movies and games alike. However, this is not the only thing that you can notice from their trailers, because I seem to recall a game with terrorists and counter-terrorists which does exactly the same as this a while back. Yes, I'm talking about Counter-Strike. The only difference that Battlefield Hardline gives is the huge arsenal of military-grade weapons and vehicles, which, by the way, don't even belong in the game if you're playing with anti-terrorism units. I have never seen such units have access to helicopters with miniguns, or infantry carrying state-of-the-art rocket launchers and machine guns. By the way, all the multiplayer footage of the game modes they've shown is almost all identical to game modes we already know from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, like Rush, Domination and even Defuse, where you need to prevent the others from bombing an objective. It all just doesn't feel right to me, because the things they copy from Counter-Strike are just lame, and the things they do differently, like for example the weapon and vehicle arsenal, just don't make it feel realistic anymore. So sorry Visceral and EA, I was hoping for something a bit more interesting.
Boring!
Okay, yes, I'll admit it, I have a hate relation with EA at the moment. Why? Well, simply because they literally have ruined so many of my favorite franchises with games like Mass Effect 3, and no, I do not mean the ending, which was BioWare's fault alone, and others like Crysis 2, Battlefield 3 and 4, The Sims 3, SimCity, all the latest releases of the Need for Speed franchise, Dungeon Keeper, Dragon Age 2 and Dead Space 3. Oh god, it's just too many of them to mention. But you get the point, I guess. It's just a ridiculous amount of franchises that came home from a cold shower after signing their contract with EA and then got raped in the butt due to the greediness of EA. Now you can discuss that the game design and gameplay changes are the fault of the developer alone, but that's where you're wrong, my friend, because the publisher has full control over the marketing department of the game. They decide how the game is released, they give the developer a deadline for the release date, they decide which content is left out and then to be sold separately as DLC and so on. For instance, Battlefield 4 is the perfect example of deadline pressure on the developer, where DICE was forced to release before the end of October last year, so that EA could beat Activision by releasing Battlefield 4 before Call of Duty Ghosts.
Fight!
Now Dead Space 3, Mass Effect 3 and The Sims 3 are then again the perfect example of where EA decides what content to leave out of the game and sell as DLC later. Not to mention the microtransactions in all of these games that are single player. Lastly, SimCity is the perfect example of DRM gone insane, and Need for Speed is an example, besides Call of Duty, of how the quality of a franchise suffers under rushed yearly releases. Now what does all of this got to do with Battlefield Hardline, you may ask? Well, basically because they're planning the exact same thing for that game. Tons of DLC with content that could have been in it, ridiculous microtransactions, a forced release date, and now even yearly releases. At first, big Battlefield games were released every 4 or 5 years, then Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 got only 2 years between them, and now Battlefield 4 and Hardline have only 1 year between them. So ask yourself this: are these increasingly faster releases gonna benefit the quality of the game? Well, I can give you the advice that when a company increases the production rate, otherwise known as quantity, then something has got to decrease as well, and this is usually the quality. So these are my 5 reasons why not to buy Battlefield Hardline. I hope that all of this made some sense, but the hard proof and facts usually speak for themselves. My only advice I can give to you is that when money is involved, whether it's with a car, a house, television, cell phone or games themselves, you should always approach it rationally and logically. Don't go buying something blindly because only the package looks cool, because that's how companies trick and fool you, and in the end it is you that is left with less money and they that can laugh at their customers that bought it. Just wait for once, wait for the reviews and sit this one out, because it might get ugly, and once you've hit the payment button there's no way back, and EA is then again rewarded with their unrespectful behavior and greediness. My name is Dreamon, the Belgian Waffle. I've been your host for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you guys next time. By the way, if you guys are able, please share and favorite these videos if you're already a subscriber. It would help me out a lot.